be really intentional about the expected amount of hours you have to put in every week. Especially if you are in corporate America, most likely your salary. I know not everyone is salary, but all the jobs I've had in corporate America have been salary. So 40 hours is really the minimum. But then I asked the question, especially from working in different manufacturing places, is what is the expected time I'm supposed to be here? Sometimes they'll say 9 to 10 hours. And there's been places that say like, hey, there's sometimes we have really long hours. It's 12 hours a day. It might last a week or two, but they'll say like, hey, you can flex your time later. I think every other week is a good cadence, but you need someone outside of your manager as well to act as a mentor because they have that outside perspective to understand, okay. And it's often good if that person is not even in the same function you're in. Obviously, if it's in the same function, they can help if you're trying to progress in that function, that's good. But if you have someone outside of that function, or maybe someone who used to work in the function, they can add proper perspective about how things in the whole business work together. And the last thing I'll mention is that HR is not your friend.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where I talk to incredible people doing incredible things so we can become the most incredible versions of ourselves. First off, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I also want you to know you can also watch this episode on YouTube. Regardless if you're listening or watching this episode, bonus points for doing both. Thank you so much for your support. If you like free things, there's one last opportunity to be entered in to get free things. You get a keyword at the end of this episode and a chance to win free merch. If you don't want to wait to the end of the episode, or you just want to get free merch, not free merch, you just want to get merch right now, you can go to IncrediPaul.org/merch. You can also learn more about the stuff I do with the Be Incredible Starter Pack, the resume template, budget template, interview guide, and interview and leadership masterclass. Obviously, I cannot talk well today, but all those things, all for free. Go to IncrediPaul.org. So a little bit of a commercial, but I'm going to dive right in talking about navigating corporate America. So this is almost a part 2 of the episode I did a couple of weeks ago, the solo episode, where I talked about the different things I have done in my career, whether it's in corporate America, startup life, nonprofit, academia, entrepreneurship, all those different things. And talk with the ambassadors a couple of weeks ago. They had some questions about what life is like in corporate America and how to actually navigate it effectively. So some of the ambassadors are working in corporate America or like in grad school. Others are still in undergrad. And this episode is specifically for them. And I know it's for you too, because they are Gen Z professionals or aspiring professionals. So you probably have the same questions they have. And I said that I could create an episode and probably some shorts from social media as well to kind of target some of these things. But the real thing is that you need to understand in corporate America, it's in everything, but I think it's most clearly seen in corporate America is that perception is reality. Perception is reality, and first impressions matter a lot. Like they really matter in corporate. And I think a lot of people think that it doesn't really matter. It's fine, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times your reputation can precede you. What other people are saying about you before they even meet you can happen. I'm not saying if that's a good or a bad thing, but just something to be aware of how you're carrying yourself and things like that. So for me, anytime I'm talking to someone, just in general, but especially in corporate, I am not going to say things to someone that I wouldn't be comfortable saying to their face. So the funny thing about corporate America is I think it's a lot like high school, even middle school at times. News travels fast. Everyone's always talking about everyone different things. So I am try as much as possible to keep things positive and just to focus on what I know about myself and what I can control and not to perpetuate things. But the thing about corporate America is that it is just a subsection of being human, living in society. We are human, we are pack creatures, we are always want to gravitate to people who are similar to us. We have a tendency to compare, we have a tendency to do all these different things. That stuff does not go away when you're in corporate America. And sometimes it can be compounded. So being intentional about your perception and just what you're saying to people and about people is really critical. Another thing that people need to realize about corporate America is that doing more work does not mean that you're going to get promoted. Doing more work does not mean you're going to get promoted. And a lot of times people might not even know that you're doing more work. You cannot just do a bunch of work and just expect people to know that you're doing great work. Someone has to know about it. You have to show it in some way. And I'm not saying that every time you do something, you need to tell someone, but if you're doing things and no one knows about it, it's not going to help you. I don't expect it to help you. It comes back to the first time I mentioned that perception is reality. You really need to know what you're doing, know the value that you bring, make it easier on your manager. And don't always consistently sacrifice your personal time and your life for work. Notice I did say never sacrifice your personal time for work because I think there is a time and place for that. You are going to be hard pressed to get a promotion or to work your way up the corporate ladder if you just do the bare minimum or you only do what's asked of you. That is not why people get promoted. People get promoted because they've shown potential, they've shown they can handle more and do more, they add value. And they also have a good attitude. I think that is understated that the people who have good attitudes, who are pleasant to work with, those are the people that are going to get promotions. Those are people that are going to get recognized when you have a positive attitude, especially when other people around you are not positive. But like I mentioned, I'm not saying that you should never sacrifice your life for work because I don't believe in work-life balance. I've said this before. I do believe in prioritization. So there's going to be times in work, especially with the job I do, because I still work as an engineer. Sometimes you have to travel. Sometimes they're longer days and things like that. And you prioritize your time. And you just need to clarify it with whoever you're working with or with your managers on what you can and can't be doing or what you should or shouldn't be doing. Because you might get asked from different functions, different people that your manager might not be aware of. And that might be adding more stuff onto your plate and making it difficult for you to do your job. And it might not be counted at the end of the year. Be really intentional. So I think that's where having a mentor is very key. It's good and you need to talk to your manager at least every other week, maybe every month. I think every other week is a good cadence, but you need someone outside of your manager as well to act as a mentor because they have that outside perspective to understand, okay, and it's often good if that person is not even in the same function you're in. Obviously, if it's in the same function, they can help if you're trying to progress in that function, that's good. But if you have someone outside of that function, or maybe someone who used to work in the function, they can add proper perspective about how things in the whole business work together. It is really easy, especially as us in STEM and me as an engineer, we get super focused on the technical, the details. But at the end of the day, if you're working in corporate America, you have to sell, you have to make money. It doesn't matter how technically good something is if consumers don't want to buy it. So it's that understanding of the whole business as opposed to only your part of the business. So you need to be intentional about that. And just overall, if you're in corporate America, you need to show initiative and you need to be proactive. These are the people that get promoted. If you show initiative and you're proactive, if you're able to do things that needs to be done and show that you're the one doing it, that is going to get you promoted. And when I've talked about promotion, but it could be different rewards. It could just be that you get the projects or things that's going to get you to the promotion. I think another thing to keep in mind in corporate America is that every company has a certain way they go about progression, a scale, salary. Everyone wants to make more money, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is that it's not just going to happen overnight. You're not just going to start a job and get promoted in a few months. Most times it takes 2 to 3 years on average to get promotion. Like every year, you're going to have performance evaluations for the larger companies, the ones I've been a part of. There's performance evaluation. You get incentives, whether that's a bonus or you get a pay bump. And that's not necessarily a promotion. That's just like offset some of the stuff with inflation and you get more money that way. But to get a true promotion, which is increased responsibility, increased pay, usually anywhere between 5% on the lower end to like 15% of promotion, that is something that you need to be intentional about. And that could take 2, 3 years, sometimes 4 years. I think that's something that you need to be intentional and ask your manager, even when you're interviewing at other companies, is what does the career progression looks like? Figure out how long people typically stay in their roles for specific companies and specific roles or things that you're doing. They have a specific time they want you in a role, especially if you're like, for me, I'm on the more technical side. It takes some time to build that technical depth. And especially if you're trying to do that, if you're not trying to do more stuff on the leadership side, it's going to take longer. You're going to have to be there longer in order to develop that technical depth versus if you're more trying to be on the leadership side of things, you don't necessarily need the technical depth. You need a technical breadth and just understanding a little bit about different things, whether it's different parts of different technologies, if you're within a technical space, or different businesses, different functions, if you're trying to progress higher. But just understanding what are your goals. If you really want to be a technical expert, you're going to have to be there longer. 2, 3 years is at the minimum. You're probably going to be there longer. But if you're trying to build more technical breadth and look into other opportunities outside of what your current function is, then you can kind of move around. You just have to understand what is it that your company allows for and is okay with. And you have to have regular conversations with your manager and your manager's manager or director to make sure that everything is in alignment and there are no surprises. People do not like surprises. One other thing, I'll share two more things. And the other thing comes with the amount of time that you're working. I know right now with artificial intelligence and AI, we can do things faster. And a lot of times it doesn't take maybe as much time to do things as we originally thought. So I think some of that stuff is shifting. And I think the reason some layoffs are happening, unfortunately, as we try and navigate this, be really intentional about the expected amount of hours you have to put in every week. Especially if you are in corporate America, most likely your salary. I know not everyone is salary, but all the jobs I've had in corporate America, I've been salary. So 40 hours is really the minimum. But then I asked the question, especially from working in different manufacturing places, is what is the expected time I'm supposed to be here? Sometimes they'll say 9 to 10 hours. And there's been places that say like, hey, there's sometimes we have really long hours. It's 12 hours a day. It might last a week or two, but they'll say like, hey, you can flex your time later, or that's not that thing that you do all the time. But there's other places I know, like some on the finance side of things, Wall Street, all those places where it's like 60, 70 hours a week. And that's just expected. You just need to do that. You make a lot of money, but you don't really have time to spend it. So being intentional about asking those questions, and really asking questions in general. It's really easy to assume things, but what they say about assuming, it makes an ass out of you and me. So you don't want to assume. You want to ask the questions. When you ask the questions, if you ask the right questions, you get the right answers that lead to the solution that you want. And the last thing I'll mention is that HR is not your friend. And I say this like candidly, but also with the understanding that I have a lot of friends who are in HR. I've befriended people in HR in every company I've been in, not specifically because they're in HR, just because HR people are easy to talk to. They're friendly. I'm a friendly person. I like to meet different people in different functions. HR is not your friend because their job is to protect the company. And I'm not saying that you can't be friends with people in HR. You definitely should be friends with people. HR. And it is people in HR that have told me this, whether it was companies I worked at or just people I know that work in HR, that HR is not there for your benefit. They're there to make sure they're protecting the company. So just make sure, like, whenever you're doing or saying different things to HR, it is their legal job. Like, if you say certain things or you're doing certain things, that they have to protect the company. So just keep that in mind. And also documentation is really key, whether it's things that you're doing for work, whether it's the accolades or things that you're doing, keep that for yourself, share that with your manager. That can help as far as getting different promotions or accolades, rewards, all those different things. But these are some things kind of like rapid fire just to keep in mind when you're in corporate America. I will keep it there, but just keep in mind that this kind of varies from company to company, culture to culture, but you want to make sure that you are doing the things that are just line up with your company culture. So I'm super big on culture, and I've left companies because the culture was not the best fit for me or the manager is not a good fit for me. And you can have a good culture with a bad manager. You can have a good manager with a bad culture. It takes a lot of intentionality to understand what the differences are between those. But as I wrap things up, I want to share the last opportunity for free merch. So, coming up on a milestone with IncrediPaul, started it in 2020, April of 2020. And at that point, I was doing more stuff specifically on speaking. I was doing a lot of stuff with universities on the career side of things. It really wasn't until the last 4 years I started podcasting. I did more stuff with coaching, got certified with Maxwell Leadership in that first year of IncrediPaul, and then started incorporating more coaching stuff towards end of 2021, early 2022. So the key word for today is the number 6. So it'll be 6 years of IncrediPaul next month. Super excited. Got to think about a way to celebrate. So that's something I'm trying to be more intentional about, is celebrating more and not just moving on to the next thing. Because on the Strengths Finder, Achiever is one of my top 5 strengths. So it's really easy for me to just accomplish something and just say, hey, I'm going on to the next thing. But what I'm realizing is I need to take time to celebrate and acknowledge the things that I'm doing well and not focus on all the things I'm doing bad, because that is not good for anyone, especially not good for me. But I know I shared a lot of different things this episode. Hopefully, one of them stood out as far as what you can do to be successful in corporate America. If you have additional questions or you want me to dive deeper into any things, let me know. Reach out, connect with the newsletter, go to contact@incredipaul.org, send me an email, reply on socials, whatever it is. Reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. But key thing with this, and I say this all the time on the podcast, you got to be intentional. Be intentional about knowing who you are, like what job you want to do, knowing what fuels you. And it could take time. Like, this is you all as Gen Z professionals, right? I know it's not only Gen Z that listening to this, but maybe you consider yourself Gen Z because you're like earlier on in your leadership journey. But be intentional about knowing who you are, because just because you are in your 50s or 60s, that does not mean you necessarily know who you are. It's you, if you've taken your time to ask yourself that question, that's how you know who you are. Understand what fuels you. Make sure to seek out mentors. Mentorship is so key. Having mentors in every aspect of your life, because there's not one person that can do everything for you. Do these things and you too can truly be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.